hit start. Okay. Welcome to the first edition of what we hope is going to be a very popular weekly segment for the handicappers. Handicapping this week, Renee Cairns along with Jennifer Morrison. Mostly what we're going to do, Jen, we've talked about it. We are going to do a quick recap of some of the big races that happened on the weekend. And they don't have to be big races necessarily, just something that was intriguing to us. But for the most part, the stake races. And then look forward to what's coming up. Because really, handicapping is about projection. What happened in the past, can't change it.
Exactly. What happened in the past, you can't change it. What we will do, however, is give you some information about our opinions of the big races from last weekend. Bad trips, something we noticed. Going forward, you can use that in your notes for handicapping. Then we'll look ahead. We'll handicap the races for you, and we'll try and give you some information that perhaps you didn't hear about or read about in the week leading up.
We've both been in the business a long time. We know enough people, and hopefully we'll be able to tap into those resources and provide some information that you can't read on the internet. You're not going to get on Twitter, maybe something that'll just be sort of thrown at us that we can pass along and help with the handicapping decisions. That's what it's all about, getting all those tidbits of information. Coming up with your own formula.
You know, it's the information age, right? Social media, everything's out there. There's little bits, but let's put it all together and package it in for a handicapping for a certain race and see what we come up with. Give you some options. We're not going to try and tell you to go and bet this horse at 6-5. We're going to give you some options, give you some value, something to work with.
So let's just have a quick recap of what happened last weekend. Derby fever is raging right now. Everybody's got it. Everybody's trying to pick the 3-year-old that they think is the one that's going to win on the first Saturday in May. 2 big races on the weekend. Gulfstream had the Fountain of Youth. Risen Star was at the fairgrounds. 2 completely different surfaces, racetracks, and 2 completely different groups of horses.
And there was 2 different, very different opinions on the races. Boy, I mean, on Twitter and everywhere, everybody was talking about how much they disliked the fairgrounds race, the Risen Star. I've struck a nerve, won at 140 to 1. Big clump of horses at the finish line. But the buyer figure was good. It was 95. The Fountain of Youth was a 96. Orb is an up-and-comer. You know, the high-priced, well-bred horses, the fancy ones, you're going to find most of them at Gulfstream. Violence was the big hype horse. He ran a great race, considering he came out of the race with the fractured sesamoids and may never race again. So 2 very different races. But I know, you know, you quite liked Orb. And boy, what about Shug McGee?
Never won the Derby. For everything that he has done,
Hard to believe.
He has yet to win the Derby. Easygoer probably his best chance, and I think many would still argue that he probably should have won that day, but he didn't.
Okay.
But he didn't. But Orb, a homebred for Janie and the Phipps stables, homebred with blue blood breedings by Malibu Moon, unbridled mare, bred to go as far as they will possibly write them. But all he needs to do is go 1.25 miles. Johnny V picking up the mount for Shug McGee. That is a formidable duo as well.
Yeah, now look at it. I mean, everybody's going to say the race set up perfectly for Orb. He was well off the pace. The pace scenario was ridiculous. You know, Majestic Hussar is a nice, slightly raced horse. Went 45 to the half. Big lead. Violence was close, chasing him on the inside. He took the lead and, you know, like ran a winning race. 108 and change for 6 furlongs. A fast race, though, finishing time. So, you know, he's the real deal, Orb. But, you know, a stretch runner who wants some pace in front of him.
And generally you don't get that pace at Gulfstream because it is more of a speed-favoring racetrack. They might go fast, but they don't. They seem to forget to come back. So if you had seen that race at Gulfstream, you might have potentially learned something that would help you handicap the race at the fairgrounds, where Violence making his first race off the shelf. I know he came out with an injury. We didn't know that then, but a tough task, first race off the shelf. Well, we had Normandy Invasion, who was the favorite in the Risen Star at the fairgrounds. Same scenario. Hadn't raced since way back in November, where he got beat a nose in the Remsen, to overanalyze.
And we'll talk about overanalyze coming up in the Gotham Stakes this weekend. But Normandy Invasion, here's another one. You know, one of the biggest bet against, at least in my eyes, and I think everybody should learn from, is the hype horses, the big stars from the year previous, returning from a layoff. And low odds. Normandy Invasion was 7-5 in a big field and a wide open field. Yes, he's a good horse. He got all the press. But look at all the horses in there that if you ignored him, the race was fairly evenly matched. What happens? Normandy Invasion is rusty. He breaks slowly. He bobbles a bit. He closes too late. There's a whole bunch of horses in front of him that hit the wire together, and the winner is 140 to 1.
And taking Normandy Invasion out of the equation, I think from first to sixth, what was it, about a length? 2 lengths of all of them right on the line.
Exactly.
So on paper, looked like a wide open race, and that's pretty much what we saw on the racetrack as well.
Exactly. And, there's nothing to say that I've Struck a Nerve is not an up-and-coming horse. He wasn't bought for a lot of money, a $1,700 weanling.
Sold a bunch of times.
Sold a bunch of times. A graded stakes winner, though. The first one for trainer Keith DeSormo. And, he talks that, the horse has had some bad trips. Anyways, we'll see how it plays out. But that's how the race set up. People were talking about it today as if they didn't like the race. But if you're a buyer speed figure person, it matched up evenly with the Fountain of Youth.
So Fountain of Youth, precursor to the Florida Derby. Risen Star, precursor to the Louisiana Derby as we get closer to the Run for the Roses. That was then. Now we look forward to the Gotham. Also with the 3-year-olds. And I think it has to be noted that with the change of the system as far as what horses are going to be eligible for the Derby, it's not ungraded earnings anymore. It's all a point system. And that definitely has to change the mindset of trainers as they map out the plan for these 3-year-olds, maximize their point-getting potential. If that's, can I say that, a point-getting potential? Sure I can. I just did.
I think you did, and I'm not going to argue with you. But it's what we were talking about, trainer intent. When you're handicapping, it doesn't matter what kind of race it is, but in particular races like this, trainer intent, why is this horse so-and-so going all the way over here for this Derby prep? We look at this in the Gotham Stakes. We have a horse named Honorable Dylan that won the Hutchison Stakes at Gulfstream Park at 7 furlongs. Now he's going all the way up to New York. Didn't run in the Fountain of Youth. Okay, perhaps didn't want to tangle with horses like Orb and Violence.
Yeah, why wouldn't he stay in his own backyard?
Exactly. But, he needs some points. The Hutchison Stakes didn't offer any points. He needs some points. Maybe he's a horse that's going to stretch out and get better. Let's go to the Gotham and see if he's good enough. Same with Sky Captain. Mark Cassidy wanted to run the horse in the Fountain of Youth. Race was pretty tough for Sky Captain, who he's very high on, but a horse that hasn't had any stakes experience. Let's go north. Also, you can say a lot about the Gotham as a lead-up race to the Wood Memorial.
I love the Wood.
And those races are very, very kind to horses heading to the Derby.
Yeah.
Perhaps, the tracks aren't as speed favoring. The surface a little bit more conducive to Churchill Downs. These are the kind of ideas that you want to look at. Trainer intent. What is going on here? So Overanalyze is going to be the big favorite in the Gotham. Why is he there? Well, because Todd Pletcher is running horses like Violence in the Fountain of Youth. So Overanalyze. He doesn't want to race these horses against each other. But now, are you going to bet Overanalyze at 4 to 5 in the Gotham this weekend?
Yeah. No, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no for Normandy Evasion maybe had other issues. First race off the shelf, Violence, first race. I want somebody that already has a tightener under his belt. That's just my opinion.
Exactly. You have horses like Vijack. This is a deep field. The Gotham is going to be a very deep field. You must look for value in this race. Okay, if Overanalyze wins, so be it. But you know what? Your betting dollar is better off to put that horse, in the second and third spots in exotics. Look for a little bit of a price horse. This is not the race that these kind of horses necessarily need to win. It's a starting point. Whereas a horse maybe like Honorable Dylan, maybe he is only a miler. He's going to win this race and eventually fall off the Derby trail. You're looking for horses that are going to offer you value.
I think attrition is the big word. We already saw Violence by the wayside because of an injury. And not every horse wants to go 1.25 miles. So when you're looking at the Gotham or at these other races, who wants to win now?
Exactly.
Whose main goal is to win today because a trainer maybe really doesn't think his horse can go 1.25 miles? What trainer thinks his horse can go 1.25 miles? And today's not winning is great. Don't get me wrong, but the main goal is still that first Saturday in May. That's when you want your horse to peak, and it's hard to keep a horse peaking for 2 months at this level.
Exactly, and there's no better time to take on horses like the heavy favorites that are coming off the layoff, such as Overanalyze, is when they're coming off the layoff. Send your horse that's already won a stake this year or already been racing. Send them to a race where you can steal a pot because the big favorite isn't quite tightened yet.
Yeah. So 3-year-olds definitely in the spotlight. The older horses, though, we're just going to quickly touch on the Santa Anita handicap. $750,000 on the line. Bob Baffert knows all about winning this race. So too does Game On Dude. Is he going to go there? That's the question mark.
All of a sudden, there's rumblings that he might not go for a possible second Santa Anita handicap, and only 2 other horses have won the race twice. The Santa Anita handicap, $750,000. It's coming up perhaps with a field of 8 or 9. They're talking about perhaps not a very hot pace, so it's kind of surprising to me that Game On Dude will not run in this race.
He could be the lone speed.
He could be the lone speed. They're talking about maybe he'll go to Charlestown, but Bob Baffert has another potential starter and a real up-and-comer by the name of Guilt Trip, who won the Stroob Stakes under Joe Talamo. He's a stretch runner. They've been worried about the pace scenario, but he is an up-and-comer. At a mile and a quarter, you're not going to need like a 45 half to get up in time. So we'll see how it plays out with Game On Dude. If it goes elsewhere, that makes the Santa Anita Handicap perhaps a bit of a better betting race.
Better betting race. Always lots of questions when you're trying to handicap horse racing. Hopefully with this podcast, we'll be able to answer a few of those questions for you so you can make maybe a better educated decision as to where you're going to put your money. Again, Jen and I are going to try and maybe use some of our contacts as far as getting you some information that you wouldn't otherwise hear about, know about, or be able to use. So this is the first edition of Handicapping This Week, and it's all yours.
You bet. Yeah, I like that one better. I mean, it's totally different. Like, we can say different. We can say that one. We can do it 20 different times, couldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's like no do-overs. I asked Mike, you said an inside perspective? It doesn't really say racing, though. Oh, is that like hashtag?
What does that mean? Inside racing? No. Baby?
What?
Yeah, let's have a quick look at this.
What, baby?
Fun boy?
What?
Oh, he's on the phone.
Oh. Pardon, moi. Yeah, let's take a look. Inside racing this week.
So what am I doing?
Inside racing this week?
How come I can't save it?
Like, it's just foolhardy to bet these horses, isn't it? Like, it's just one after another. These horses come off. The big hype horses, Violet. Everyone gets beat. It's a joke. What do you think, Baron von Nemesis? I'm liking the Baron. It's the first time I've tried it.
How come I can't save this one? How did I play the other one back? How come I can't play this one back? I don't want to record anymore. What the hell did I do? Didn't I just, hit play before?